got some questions regarding this OTA, and I think I might know the answers, but let's talk about all that right now. Starting, of course, with this buff, nerf, rework. It's probably closer to a nerf than anything else, but Sparky is going from a 2-1 that gave the last card that you moved +3 power, and then moved it back to wherever it was before, then to a 2-2 where it only gives +2. This is a change I feel like that's been pretty much asked by, I think, the competitive community, but I don't think a lot of the more casual player base cared about this as much. I think that Sparky was a really good card, and just a bit too good. I understand what they were trying to do when they rebalanced Human Torch and Vulture, swapping their cost and power, and it made a lot of sense. However, and they even talk about it here, is that it's a bumpy road to get to an ideal spot where they feel like move is correct. And I think this is a change that makes a lot of sense and gets us closer to that, but I don't think I just don't like that this is the change they went for, I feel like. I think that there's still a pretty big, obviously, issue with Human Torch, and when I say obviously, this is obvious to people who are in the higher MMR bracket and people who are in top infinite. I'm gonna be honest, I don't see as much of that personally, but I've continually heard the racketing and the banging of the pots and pans, everyone saying that move is atrocious and needs to get nerfed, and this isn't the nerf I would expect, I feel like, based off that stuff, but it's probably the nerf that Second Dinner feels is fair. And it has a little bit of a caveat, a little bit of an issue, in that I think this nerf and the next card we'll talk about here are both kind of just like, sure, let's just do this, and this just makes like the most amount of sense based off of, I don't know, they have more information. I think they're good at their job. I just don't think that this is the best change for it all, and I feel like move is still going to be in a pretty good spot. I like the fact that they want to make more cards like Sparky. Like, they want to do more stuff with web sling. They want to do more stuff with, what is it? I think is there not a move card command next season? I don't know if there's any other move cards command next season, but they want to have the ability to make more of these movement style cards. And Sparky, who I'm now actually addressing on the right side of the screen, I don't think was the issue in a lot of those packages. I just think the fact that you can do these decks, which they even talk about here, they want to do a mass moving style of deck, and I've mentioned it a few times because I think it's really interesting, but the problem is Hydra Stomper just pales in comparison to just doing big stuff with the Human Torch. So maybe it's still fine, maybe it doesn't actually matter here, but I think that this change just feels a little bit too, like, safe. I don't know, maybe that's me wanting more there, but they even talk about how they don't think that they are, like, they just don't think that there's going to be a they're not gonna be satisfied. They said they are unlikely to be totally satisfied with the end state of move, and they also specifically mentioned Human Torch. And they even say it later on in this bit of the announcement that it's likely to remain true that too much of move strength is currently in Human Torch. And I mean, I get that, but if there's too much of the strength in Human Torch, shouldn't you, like, do you not want to nerf? Like, I don't know. I think that the competitive player base would like to see more nerfs to the move package, but I also wonder how valuable the move package really is to the casual player base then, right? If we're seeing all these different changes that they're trying to go for here and trying to make it so that move is a balanced deck in the, in the lower MR brackets pre-infinite and then also in the top of infinite, that's such a difficult thing to balance, just due to the fact that, for one, the top of infinite, especially in that, like, it's top like 100, whatever they call it, like I don't know, they have some sweaty name for it or whatever, but like there's this top of infinite, right, where I think a lot of people, they're playing against each other, playing against a lot of the same decks repeatedly, and I just don't think that this change in the end feels like it's gonna do what they want it to do. I think this is a change that they probably had in mind, I want to bet, for like a month. Second Dinner was out of town last week, if this wasn't known to y'all. They were out of town last week, going on a company retreat. And that's part of the reason why there was, I think, two OTAs in a row the week prior. And I kind of feel like this change and a lot of these changes that we're going to talk about today are just like, yeah, all right, these are changes that were good, and we could just do one big OTA right before, like, let's say the Golden Gauntlet, and just talk about every single one of these, do all of them at the same time. And instead, they spread it out, and they kind of made it so it's like two just lackluster OTAs. I mean, I didn't even do a video on the last one, partially because the notes were announced in advance, and also because it just was lackluster. And I think today's is also lackluster, but I'm specifically wanting to do a video today because it wasn't known in advance, and also I think there is just a interesting conversation to be had of what, like, is this an OTA that they just basically had in the back burner and they were ready for it and they could have done it like 2 weeks ago and they thought it would have been good 2 weeks ago? I feel like the answer is yes. And I think the thumbnail, this card, is the other part of my issue with this OTA. Like, I don't think Storm's the problem in this. So there's like a bunch of War Machine, Storm, Legion decks that have been played everywhere. And they say in particular that they've been creeping up in the play rate and win rate for over a month now, and they want to knock them down a bit, which again, over a month now makes me feel like, okay, a lot of this stuff is just back burner things they were kind of ready for. And they mention how not playing cards sucks. It's not fun. It's frustrating. They want the game to be fun. They don't want to weaken. They don't want to make it so this isn't like possible. They just want to make it like lower. They just want to try to bring it down a little bit here. And I just don't think this is the right call. It goes back to kind of what we had forever ago when they first changed Storm in order to balance around like the War Machine and Legion stuff. They made her a 4/5, killed the card. Like, by the way, also Cerebro's a deck, and now Cerebro 2 is, I think, completely gone because location variation is so important, or mitigation, and now you don't get Storm for that anymore. And so I'm just kind of surprised by all of this. This is just another one where it's like, this doesn't feel like the card you should be hitting. If you want to make it so this War Machine, Storm, Legion combo isn't good, I think Legion should be changed. I think Legion should be hit. They're nerfing a bunch of tech cards as of their recent patterns or whatever. And I think Legion is the most problematic card in those decks. Why can't Legion just get a change? Is that a crazy thought? Like, why can't Legion go to a 5/5? It's still a really solid ability because you change the entire board. And it works amazing for this lockout style deck. And I get it that Cerebro 2 is not really a good deck anymore, but the fact that you still are taking Storm and just, I think this is the nail in the coffin for Cerebro 2. This is why I'm confused. I don't know. It feels like these two changes are the ones that I'm like, I don't think this should be it. I think there's supposed to be something else here. I don't feel like this should be the answer to these problematic decks in the meta. And I don't enjoy that War Machine Storm deck either, but like, I really don't think Storm's a problem. I think Storm's such a cool card, a cool ability, that every single time, I think she makes sense as a 3/2, and every single time she is taken away from that 3/2 stat line, I just think that the game becomes, like, she just kind of just goes away and is dead. I don't think that she'll probably still exist, except for this deck, which will still be run, because it doesn't matter if she's only 1 strength. Guess what? You don't care about the strength. Who cares about strength when your opponent can't play cards? So, yeah, I don't like it. We're out of the nerfs at least, and we can look at the buffs. Oh, they're making Galacti a 7/5? That doesn't do anything. The card doesn't change anything. The card, I don't believe, is still, I don't think the card is going to be good. But so we get these notes in advance, obviously, so I can make the videos. But I've been playing a little bit of Zombie Galacti here, just trying to mess with it, and I've yet to have a game where a point of power makes a difference. I've thus far had games where I'm like, why in the heck would I just change all my cards to be this? Because typically what you want to do is you want to buff up the other cards, buff up Zombie Galacti, and then make all the other cards different. Cool. I don't think it matters with this, because if you're bringing it back, I don't know, that everything else you're also like that you've put points into, because I mean, you can't always be consistent in only buffing Zombie Galacti. Everything else that you played up until that point just kind of is nothing. I don't know. Like, this just again kind of feels like, why? Why is this the buff we want? Why is this the change that we're like, yeah, that's good? I don't think so. And I get it. They're concerned about this. They said it. They say it's a card that is extremely sensitive to balance knobs. I think the best way to use Zombie Galacti is one where no OTA is going to make a difference, and I think it's Khonshu. I think Khonshu has just been the best place to use Zombie Galacti. I know people have been doing it with other stuff, but I guess Shuri's the other one people could do some stuff with. And so, you know what? Maybe Zombie Galacti is going to be better there. I just don't think this card's going to be good. I mean, I talked about this, I think on the Golden Gauntlet, like, the stream. I was like, yeah, this card's awesome. I love it. I don't think it's good. And I think it's kind of the issue that we've had with a lot of quest style cards where they kind of just miss. Dormammu missed and is maybe okay now. Noir, we just got released, probably missed. And Zombie Galacti definitely missed. Like, they say that they have expectations that a singular power should make this card dramatically stronger. I don't know what type of copium they're on, but I guess. I'm just realizing that through each of these changes, for example, Orca going to be a +7 power if it's your only card here, going from a +5. Every single one of these changes, I'm kind of like, wow, I'm really not a fan of them. I don't think I'm a fan of the majority of the changes that I've seen here, and it really sucks. Like, I love Orca. I think Orca's an awesome card. I don't think this matters. I don't think you want to make it so there's exactly one card at that location all game long. And yes, you can just leave something there and like leave the lane empty and play it on the final turn. Maybe it makes a difference. I just feel like this card really should be on reveal. And also, spoilers, there's no Namor change. So Namor is fine, but Orca isn't. And I think there's something they mentioned forever ago where they said like they can't really change Namor too much because apparently he's part of like the ongoing, like the early player experience. And one of the decks they play against is a Namor deck. And that's what teaches them to retreat. That's like one of the key things. Cool. Change that deck or change Namor. I think both are very viable options. I don't get it. I think both of these should just be on reveals. I think with the +5, it's fine. I don't know, +7. I mean, it's going to be used more. I just don't think it's a good change. I just don't like it. I don't know. Is this gonna make a difference? Probably not. Now, this one was a bit unexpected. Odin going to a 6/9, a very nice stat line if you ask me. Same ability. This is interesting. So there's actually, they both for Odin and for Orca, they are talking about one of the cards that are coming up, Hydra Man, who is a 5/8 that has the on-reveal ability to set the top card of each player's deck, set their cost to 1. Now that's cool and that's really interesting. And they even say that they want to do these buffs ahead of Hydra Man's release, as well as due to another couple of changes that they have coming up later in this OTA that we'll talk about. Cool. So I don't think Hydra Man's gonna make a difference because if you're running Hydra Man, I don't know, I guess you're just going to be using like a Mobius, or I get to do my dumb combo where it's like I want to play Hydro Man or I want to go Luminous Snow on turn 3. Turn 4 has Sarah. I knock over my Infinity Gauntlet almost. Oh, that scared me. Sorry. Turn 4, Sarah. Turn 5, you get to play what's his face, the Hydro Man, and then you cable to steal their card that costs 1. And that's like a genius plan in my opinion. And then there's, I don't know, I guess Odin's just one that you're like, yeah, cool. Well, we want you to be able to use a bunch of really big stuff with that. So here you go. Here's a cool card that's like potentially interesting for it. And they're saying the same thing kind of with Orca, but I just don't see the benefit truly in either one of them. Neither one really feels like they're going to make that big of a difference. Neither one feels like they are that impactful. And I'm fine with this one much more so than I think with the Orca one. I don't believe the Orca one's going to change the way it's played because Clog is just a thing that will consistently exist. Even if they did nerf Debris recently, you still have like Kate Bishop's Arrow, Goblins, other ways that people are clogging decks just to mess with stuff like that. And people are even running like Clog stuff, especially in regards to like Noir coming out. I saw a few of those, which, how dare you, by the way? How dare you do that? Noir isn't a good card already, and you're trying to make it worse? Why? Anyway, cool. Like, I'm glad they're doing these changes. These changes feel like these are free points of power. It doesn't make a difference. Sure. So what? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll be using some more Hammer Bros or whatever. That's probably my best copium. But it feels like Misery, Firehair are just probably better than Odin. And you get double the triggers and even more power on the board. This one surprised me at first, but I think it makes sense in the end. Wave going from a 3-5 to a 3-6. And I think that when I first saw this, I was like, why is this a card that they feel like needs to get buffed? And I kind of spent a little bit more time on it. And for one, they say that they want to buff, they're buffing Wave as well as the other 6-drops. And they're even talking about them all together, putting a very obvious hint like, hey, these cards are getting buffed together. Play these cards. And that's their logic. And sure, okay, I get that. But I think Wave was already being played a decent chunk in general. To be fair, when you get to the, which we get to post infinite stat lines according to public data, she was getting played less, so maybe there's something else there. But I think that Wave is getting changed, not even so much due to her own stats. I think it's due to Luna Snow. And this might be weird, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. Luna Snow was not playable at a 3-5. And she got bumped up to a 3-6, and now she's a very good energy generator. And I don't think Wave was forgotten about, but I do think that when you saw both of them next to each other, you're like, okay, cool, the benefit of Luna Snow is just better than Wave's. And I'm not gonna say that's entirely accurate, but it felt pretty close to accurate. So Wave going to a 3-6, this is one that I'm like, I wonder if this is, and I don't like using it often because I feel like people overuse it and they overstate it. This feels like one where it's like, this is power creep. Or you could say power creep, but I also think one thing that I've heard other people say, and I like it, is it's more of a realization of how much effects cost versus their abilities or versus their stat lines, where you might be like, okay, cool, the power creep of Nikia after Vision got buffed up. No, Nikia wasn't getting played anyway. Nikia wasn't good. It just, when they buffed up Viv, they realized that they wanted to make Nikia better as well. And both of them deserved those buffs. They're both deserving of those buffs. Because it took a bit of time, but they've realized how much that ability is worth in the game itself. And so I feel like that's kind of similar to what's happening here with Wave, where they are realizing what Wave's ability is worth, how much benefit you can get out of it, and they are like, yeah, all right, let's just make it better. Give it a point of power, and, you know, maybe people will play some more 6-drops, because Luna Snow does do better with 5-drops, whereas Wave obviously does better with 6s. So, I don't know. Cerebro 6 Galactus, anyone? All right, White Queen goes to a 3-5. I don't care. Like, I don't know, maybe if she stole it, I'd be interested. That'd be atrocious, it'd be a busted ability, but 3-5, that's a buff. It's definitely better. They even call out that she might work with these 6 costs. And yeah, maybe she will. I just don't think I heard this phrase recently and I've loved it. I absolutely love it. I don't know why. 3-5, it's just not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze. Why do I want their highest the highest cost card in their hand if I don't plan on using it? Or what am I gonna, I guess I'll use like a Quinjet or something, but Quinjet makes it only a 5. I don't know. I just don't care about it. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be a beneficial ability. Oftentimes, people are building very combo heavy decks, and that's especially true in today's metagame. So when you're telling me that people are doing a 3-5 stat line for a White Queen, I'm like, cool. I don't want their top end. Their top end is something they're building toward typically at the end of the game. We're not playing as many generically good 6-drops anymore, other than Galactus First Steps, which might be a fair comparison here. But other than that, oftentimes it's a lot better just to be like, okay, cool, your cheapest card, that's a lot more versatile because they are cheaper cards typically. Although sometimes, you know, the cheap cards can still be very narrow, but I think more often than not, cheap cards are typically broad in the way they can be used. So I feel like I want the cheaper cards. I want the Mirage much more so than I would prefer a White Queen. I don't know. Maybe White Queen will get used. Maybe I'm going to be wrong here. she's still not Emma Frost, and I don't know why. I'm guessing that's just going to be, when's the X-Men 97 new season coming out? Are we going to, I think we're data mined to get an Apocalypse season around then. I don't know. At some point, we're probably going to get an Emma Frost card, maybe. Anyway, I just think that this is a point of power they can give that probably doesn't change the card, which is the correct buff to make. There are 7 changes in total in this OTA, and it really feels like all of these are ones they kind of just had on the back burner and we're waiting for the right time to use them. And so it makes me less of a fan of this OTA, as it doesn't feel like it was specifically curated for the meta. And that sounds maybe very like stuck up or whatever, but I'm not trying to. I think oftentimes when they're making their OTAs, one of the things I really enjoy about Marvel Snap is that they have a consistent evolving meta. And to be fair, the first 2 cards talked about, both Storm and Move, are both some of the more played, more popular, more powerful decks in the metagame. So sure, it makes sense that they want to buff those cards, or like nerf those cards, or rework them, or whatever you want to say. But in general, it feels like the rest of it's kind of just like, okay, these are all changes. I don't think any of them are likely to make a difference. I'll argue, I think that Odin and Galacti will probably see a little bit more of, and we'll probably see slightly less Storm and the same amount of Sparky. And then the other cards are also here. I don't know. This is an OTA that my question is, was this just a preloaded one? And I think the answer is yes. That's my guess. So let me know what you think. Do you think this OTA was one they basically just had in the burner for a while? Do you like it? Do you think it's impactful? Do you think any of these are going to make big differences? Do you think that there are cards that were just not buffed enough? In all honesty, I kind of think that Galacti and White Queen are both going to still be pretty bad. Do you think Storm should be moved from the 3-2 stat line? Do you think this is going to be a good change for her? I don't know. I have a bunch of questions. Answer any or all or none of them that you would like to in the comments down below. Appreciate everyone hanging out to the end of the video. Y'all are freaking amazing, fantastic, and awesome. Catch you around for the next one. Peace out.